Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. Patch 1107 of the Siren Isle brings with it a bunch of new changes from a brand new isle for us to explore and discover, but also some brand new content from excavations to a lot of new rares for us to face off the storms, but also a bunch of new rewards from mounts, as well as a ton of different cosmetics with so many different vendors from the Earthen Cosmetics, the Arathi Cosmetics, Goblin Cosmetics, and so much more. But all of those cosmetics and items to add to your collection will require quite a bit of a new currency of Flame Blessed Iron, which everybody right now is scrounging to farm up as efficiently and quickly as possible to collect all the items available in 1107 update. And I spent quite a bit of time so far on the Isle, whether it is in PTR, but also over on the live realms, to find out some of the fastest and some of the best methods of obtaining this currency, and I kind of wanted to list them off here in today's video, going over some of the more efficient ways if you're not really big fan of grinding and farming the Isle endlessly, but also two popular methods that are available right now if you're looking to get the most efficient and the fastest gain on Flame Blessed Irons to buy all of the new stuff from the vendors as quickly as possible. As always, if you guys want to see more regular guides like these for patch 1107 or potentially 11.1, hopefully hitting PTR very soon, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. Of course, when it comes to the title of the video, to get all the items you want for 1107, you're gonna need to do a little bit of farming if you're trying to get Flame Blessed Iron as quickly as possible. However, if you're not a fan of endless farming and grinds and would rather do something a little bit more efficient, there are some alternatives available, like getting your weeklies out of the way as soon as possible, maybe even on multiple characters. Bare minimum, you should do all of the weeklies on your main character at the very least, because the amount of Flame Blessed Iron you get on the first time around on a character, it's quite a decent bit, with right now, at least this week, up to 5 weeklies that are available in camp, plus 2 that are available in the storms. You're earning about 200 Flame Blessed Iron per one of those weeklies that you're also going to do while doing all the rest of the island activities. It is a decent bulk of a single character, but if you are going to be playing alts in this update, then alts can help you farm it and make this farming just a little bit more efficient. Plus, you can combine the weekly activities plus with a little bit of light farming and some of the different activities that are on the Isle, which gives you a first time bonus on every single one of those alts. So the more characters you take into the island, the more efficiently you can get this currency, and you can get about like 1,000 in less than an hour, probably 2,000 in 2 hours, just for doing basic things without endless sweaty grinds either. So while you're out and about completing all of the rare kill quests and then killing a bunch of Vrykul for this week and then slaying more enemies, you'll find treasures and rares and excavations along the way, which will also give you a nice bit of bonuses. Then you'll head into the storms in order to do some farming there and kill a couple of rares and a couple of events there as well. So it's just on the way, but also it gives you a goal to work towards on every single one of your alts, and it doesn't take a long time to do either. This one works really well if you have multiple characters that you're willing to play in 1107, and if they're especially better if they're decently geared, because doing solo stuff on the Isle can be tough, especially in the storms, but you can always group up with other players that are doing these weeklies as well if you want to make your experience here a little bit easier. However, if you can't wait to buy all of these cosmetics and mounts and transmog pieces and you want to get them now, then right now, as of this moment, there are 2 really good methods of farming. One involves doing it in the baseline version of the Isle, and the other doing as farming in the storms. The first one is going to be the base island farming, which is called kind of like the elite rare circuit farming, where all you do is roam around, slaying elites, participating in events, because every single elite you slay continues to provide your Flame Blessed Iron every time you slay them. They don't have a daily or a weekly lockout. Also, for the excavation elites, the big ones that you have to deliver resources into to unearth from under the caverns, all of those will also continue to reward you with additional Flame Blessed Iron every time you slay them. The big excavation elite rares are going to give you, the first time you slay them, around 200 Flame Blessed Iron, with about 100 or a little bit over 100 every time afterwards, or something like up to 182 potentially from some of the rares, and then it does go down by roughly half every other time you slay them. But it's something that a lot of players have been doing, is just roaming around the Isle, killing all the elites, killing all the rares, participating in as many events as possible. And just by doing that, just by doing the circuit on the Isle, you can get roughly about 1,600 Flame Blessed Irons per hour. Or if you want to take it extra sweaty, you can also do some server hopping to try to find a server that has an active phase with a bunch of events going on and fresh new rares. And players have been able to net roughly 2,700 iron per hour hour based on what was reported. Also, by running around and killing rares, there's also a very small chance of the rare dropping you an overflowing bag of iron, which provides you with 500 of that currency, which is another reason for you to potentially roam around and slay a bunch of rares for that small chance of giving you bags of iron in order to help you collect a huge bulk of it in a single go. And while you're running around the isle, don't forget to slay some of the other smaller enemies that are easy to come by and loot all the treasures, because it can drop you up to 35 iron per treasure. And even some of the smaller enemies, while they don't give you a lot, roughly between 5 to 11 iron, depending if they're a normal enemy or an elite, it still is worth killing them if they're along the way or if they're near a rare, so you might as well double up and get as much efficiency out of it. Now, if you just want to stand in one place and grind out mobs to your heart's content, then you will want to join one of the fragment farming groups. But those groups aren't necessarily there to farm fragments for the mount, but they also are an excellent place for you to be able to get a bunch of flame blessed iron very quickly, as you just stay in one spot with enemies that are rapidly respawning, and you AoE them down, especially if you're using some of the different goblin gadgets like the mine in order to deal great AoE damage. Nuke them down as quickly as possible, loot them, go to the other side of the beach where the enemies are respawn, nuke them again, and just keep going back and forth. And if you have 5-man group and no one else to compete against, you can get a lot of flame blessed iron rather quickly. The place you're looking for is the beach area in front of where the Forgotten Vaults will be, and there you'll find a variety of different Vrykul as well as Wraith type of enemies that, for the most part, even take themselves out very quickly, as the Wraith Skellies will even cast a buff that hurts them, but also gives them a little bit of a haze buff, but they literally end up slaying themselves, so you barely even have to touch them, just need to group them up together, drop a mine, let them just nuke themselves down, and it's incredibly easy. You could just keep doing it for hours with how regularly they all spawn. And while players are still farming the mount, there are always going to be fragment farming groups, and this is one of the better spots available, and you can simply just hop from one fragment farming group into the next. Maybe you're working on the mount, but also trying to get some flame blessed iron. It could be a two birds with one stone type of situation, and some players have been able to report getting roughly about 4,000 iron every 2 or 3 hours or so. So you're looking at potentially 2,000 iron per hour, more or less, give or take. Now, you can make a very hyper efficient group in order to farm this, but from my time spent trying to out this farm specifically, it seems that it's a lot easier if you have 2 tanks, one for one beach, one for the other beach, where a huge bulk of enemies spawns in, and all the tanks have to do is round those enemies together. You don't necessarily need a lot of gear in order to be able to do this efficiently, just need to be able to get all these mobs rounded up and walking towards you, drop in one of those goblin mines, and then have it waddle over to the enemy and explode, blowing them up very quickly. With the only enemies that really will offer you any type of challenge being probably the elites, because all the normal skellies, they don't really do anything. You will have to go back to the camp to refresh the mine buff, and I guess you could take any other equipment if you're not a big fan of the mines, because they do have a bit of a delay before they explode. So you could take the other weapon that's available, which is kind of like a grenade launcher of sorts. You could make the groups a little bit more efficient by bringing in a hunter with some kind of like a range pull ability, or maybe a balance druid which has great pull potential from a distance, but it's not really necessary either. Because in this area, even though enemies have quite a bit of health, gear should not be that much of an issue, because the goblin equipment takes care of all these mobs very fast. The only thing you have to worry about is making sure that the shard you're in, or the server you're on, or the phase you're in of the isle, that nobody else is taking your spots, because it's very competitive. If you have no one to compete against, this is where you can get a lot of flame blessed iron. But if you're constantly having to compete with a group, that means that other group is most likely removing your ability to get even more flame blessed iron that you potentially could. Now, that is another thing to note, is we are kind of piggybacking off of the fragment farming groups in order to get more flame blessed iron, because those groups are still going to be around. It just ends up being this week in particular, outside of the main vaults, is the pretty good spot to farm flame blessed iron. But in following weeks, the isle is going to change. Different enemies are going to invade it. This week is Kvaldir as well as Vrykul, but next week could be pirates or Naga or any other threats that may invade the isle. So you just need to keep an eye out for where fragment groups are and where they change up to. But the fragment groups are usually going to be in places where enemies are in high density, which means you'll be able to get more fragments, but also even more flame blessed iron. So over the next few weeks, look out for groups that are farming more fragments, not necessarily groups farming outside of the vault specifically, as the location and the most efficient spots may change week by week, depending on which enemies invade the isle. But as of this very moment, that's going to be the two of the best and the most efficient farming methods available for getting more flame blessed iron. And from somebody who did some early math, it looks like you may need roughly 90,000 flame blessed iron to buy everything on the vendor. So good luck farming this currency over the next few weeks. But with that, as always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy this update video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join this community for additional guides for the patch 1107, but also potentially 11.1 stuff once it hits the PTR realms. As always, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see all of you guys in the next one.